What's up, everyone? Welcome to S-TEC Live. My name is Tony, and I'm the social media coordinator here at the Peter E. Schmidt Company. If you don't know who we are a manufacturer representative in the New York metro territory, and we represent a bunch of different brands, including Shure, SKB, K&M, but today the focus is on QSC. Today, we're going to be talking about the Q-SYS ecosystem a little bit, and we have our own Kyle Walker who is going to be leading the conversation with Mike DeFreece from QSC. So I'm going to pass it over to them so we can just get this thing going. Take it away, guys.
All right, well, thank you, Tony. For those of you listening or watching us at home, I'm Kyle Walker with PE Schmidt. I work in the systems team, so integration, contracting. That's where I am. And today I'm interviewing, as Tony said, Mike DeFreece from QSC. How you doing today, Mike?
Doing well. How are you today?
I'm all right. So, Mike, just can you briefly tell us, what do you do at QSC? Like, who are you?
A leading question. So I am the sales director for QSC for the Eastern region. So I cover most of the eastern portion of the U.S. We have a team, direct team that helps support all of our customers in the U.S. And I have a team here in the East that does that, as well as, of course, the great team at Peter E. Schmidt that supports us in region there. We work together to help sell and support and work on solutions with our customers.
So that makes sense. I mean, I did know all of that because I do work for you, as you said. So QSC, most folks know them as, speaker audio brand. Can you kind of go into how that came to be, where they started, like who founded QSC?
That's a great question. So QSC was actually founded way back in 1968. So there were three founding members. So it was Pat Quilter, along with Barry Andrews and John Andrews, started the company. In early days, they were building guitar amplifiers, and they sort of progressed into amplifiers that went into performance sound systems and theater sound systems and things like that. And over the years, the portfolio has been widened quite a bit to include loudspeakers, signal processing, video, control systems. So we've really taken the company from what we were back in the early days and grown it in a very systematic way over the years to be what we are today. It's pretty exciting.
When I was first exposed to QSC, when I was a young student in college doing audio production, QSC loudspeakers, especially their powered stuff, was the cream of the crop, and still is. But you hinted at how we've moved into processors and control processors. That's the Qsys system you're referring to, I assume?
That's correct, sure. The Qsys ecosystem that is now complete audio, video, and control system. It's a networked topology, so we can sit either on a purpose-built AV network, or we can sit on a customer's network and work seamlessly, because we use IT standards. We're not using some hodgepodge of stuff that we threw together. We're actually using standard IT protocols to move traffic for audio, video, and control across the network, which is a great benefit.
So how long has Qsys been around then? Because obviously networks have been around for forever, but I feel like it was only more recently that it became ubiquitous, even mandatory for people to have big network backbones to do business, period.
So
how did it start? Who was taking it first?
We've been shipping Qsys products for about 12 years. In the early days, our first customers were primarily stadiums and theme parks. We are now in over half of the NFL stadiums across the country. We're in a lot of the major theme parks across the globe. We are on cruise ships. We are in lots of very large venues, across the globe. But
so that's how
we've also downsized things a lot from the early days.
Oh, but initially, though, fair to say that it was basically a large scale system, meant for those big venues.
Absolutely. In the early days, our products were very, large venue based technologies. We were going after that market very specifically. That's what we were that was our sweet spot, if you will. And
Very
over the
cool.
years, we've downsized the cores and right sized them and right priced them to fit into a lot of other markets now.
So how do you go about, like, what enables Qsys to get downsized and get into further applications? Because I feel like very generally a lot of these boxes, in the AV world, are very generally purpose built for a specific and often narrow application. What enables Qsys to do that where somebody else maybe can't as easily?
Well, there's a couple key things about our technology. One, we're based on Intel chipsets, so we can scale the actual hardware based on what Intel hardware we use inside of that. And then also it's all software driven. So with every new product that we release, we also release new software. And we have software releases, several times a year that add new features and new capabilities, and also support the new hardware that we release. So it's a growing software topology that allows us to expand things moving forward. So just like you would on your phone, if you needed an app to be able to get directions on going somewhere, you can update your software inside of Qsys and now be able to do new things that you might not have been able to do in a previous release.
So on previous phones, say like flip phones, and if we're going to carry that analogy, kind of if you want to do something new with it, you had to go buy a whole new phone. That's less so the case with Qsys because we can just kind of
That's right. That's right. You add the new software and you add new features by doing that.
That is very cool.
So,
what are a couple of...
Go ahead.
You were going. I was going to say, what are some features that you're able to do and add that software that perhaps someone else can't?
Right. So that's a great question. Things that most people do with hardware, we do in software. For instance, acoustic echo cancellation. All of our Qsys core processors are able to do some number of AEC processing inherently inside the box. So depending on the size, the model that you have, you can do anywhere from 8 channels up to hundreds of channels of acoustic echo cancellation in our processor. We also do USB bridging natively. So we have USB ports on the back of most of our, especially the smaller core processors, and we also have extension peripherals that allow us to do USB audio video bridging. And that is just done in software to that USB port.
I don't need to necessarily go and buy I know they're available, but I don't need to go out and buy a purpose-built box just to enable my processor to talk to my computer.
That's right. So on the back of a Core 110 and some of the newer cores that we have, we've got a USB port, and it just does that.
That is very cool. So you did mention the Core 110, and that, to my understanding, that was kind of the first entry into downsizing Qsys.
Right.
Are there any new products that further downsize or allow it to meet different applications?
There are, yes. So the Core 110 has been hugely successful for us, obviously. That allowed us to really get into the conference room spaces, the classroom spaces, especially for higher ed. But this past year, we've just introduced 2 new core processors that are even smaller and more cost-effective than the Core 110. They're still built on the same Qsys software, so they inherently do the same things as a Core 110 can do, just at a slightly smaller scale. So we have the Core 8 Flex and the Core Nano that are our 2 new products that we introduced, and we're now shipping these. The Core 8 Flex, we sort of stole the flexible I/O that we have on the Core 110, and we put that on the back panel, but it's a half rack spaced unit, and it has those 8 flex channels in there, but it also allows you to do all the inherent things that you could do on a Core 110 just at a smaller scale. So 8 flex channels. We've, of course, got the USB connectivity that'll do the audio and video bridging. And then we also introduced the Core Nano. So the Core Nano is essentially similar hardware, just without any I/O. So what we're seeing a lot of these days is people are utilizing networked appliances, microphones, even sometimes speakers that are Dante based. So we can bring those in across the network where you may not need many or any analog inputs and outputs. And so that's what the Core Nano and the Core 8 Flex are really built for. For the smaller meeting spaces, if you're doing soft codec type rooms for Teams, Microsoft Teams, or if you're, using a space that only has a few inputs in it, these are great processors for that.
It is pretty striking how you mentioned that when Qsys first launched, it was, stadiums, transit, which is hundreds and hundreds of channels, hundreds of speakers, hundreds of amps, and then looks like these two boxes kind of can go into a huddle room if you wanted to, or maybe a couple of huddle rooms since they are,
That's right.
meant to do that. But that's all the same exact software. So if I can program that big stadium core, that is very cool. And now you mentioned Dante before.
Right.
So I assume that we are compatible with Dante and we can connect to all these various Dante devices that are saturating the market today. Saturating
Absolutely.
might be the best word, but
we've been a partner with Audinate for years. We've had card-based solutions that allow us to do Dante, but we now have software-based Dante implemented. So the same port that we use for QLAN that connects all of our devices together on the network, we use that same port now to also do Dante channels over the network. So with the Core 110, the Core 510, the Core Nano, and the Core 8 Flex, you get 8x8 channels of software-based Dante built into every box. And if you need to add more channels, it's a licensed feature. So you can add, depending on the core, you can add more channels at a certain level to get.
So if I were to buy myself a Core, we'll call it a 510i, because I like to think medium big. If I buy it, the 8x8 one day works, and then tomorrow I need to move or add a new room, I can just purchase a new license and add it. I don't need to get a card or anything like that.
That's right. Purchase a new license. It literally takes about 2 or 3 minutes to load that license onto your core, and away you go.
That is really, really cool. So we do know that, Qsys, primarily we've been talking about audio and then bridging with soft codecs such as Teams, Zoom, how a lot of us are communicating today. But you did hint at before that Qsys does more than that. It's a control platform and a video platform. What are some of its video capabilities at this time?
So we introduced cameras several years ago. So we have, as part of our conferencing solution, we have native Qsys cameras that we can then present as the camera image for the far end on a Teams or a Zoom call, for instance. But we've also now got a new device, an NV32H, which is our video endpoint, that also allows us to bring video into this ecosystem and transmit it from a receiver out to a transmitting unit. And one of the cool little tricks we're doing with this is we can use the NV32 as either an encoder or a decoder. It's the same hardware. It has 3 HDMI inputs and 2 HDMI outputs. And depending on how you provision it in software, it's either an encoder or a decoder. And then, of course, the newest thing we've done with this same hardware is we have a new version of this that we're shipping now, which is the NV32H core capable, that also allows you to use this in core mode. So you can use this as a standalone 3x2 HDMI switcher and have it also work as a Qsys processor, a core processor, which is fantastic. And at any time, you can repurpose this, if you need to also be an encoder or decoder with a new load of software program.
Got it. And so this box, I know it's a bit buzzwordy, but I assume this supports 4K video transmission. Is that correct?
It does.
Right.
It's a full 3x2 in 1080p. If you want to do 4K, there's some network limitations, so it's a single output at 4K and one single stream in at the input level, per device. But yes, it absolutely supports full 4K.
Oh, it is very impressive that it allows you to just within the software, it is programming very similar to the audio component at Qsys. That's a more mature aspect of it.
It is. So you just drop it into your Qsys software and you connect video inputs and outputs just like you would audio channels. And it's very simple. Literally, you can add video into a system, an existing Qsys system, 5 to 10 minutes. In fact, I think we have some really cool videos where some of our team shows how quickly you can actually add this in software and get a system up and running.
I believe that is correct. There may or may not be some kind of burrito involved in that video, but I do advise anyone watching this to go investigate that video afterwards because it is very, very illuminating. But that's so on that NV32H encoder or decoder, which is really cool, and it's the same SKU whether you're buying it to encode or decode.
Yep. Or if you want to use it as a core.
Oh, okay. So one SKU to do anything.
That's right.
So as a core, then you have 3x2 video switching. So for local collaboration rooms, you do have a full core processor. Is it about the same horsepower as the 8 Flex and Nano, just different I/O configuration?
Very similar. In all three of those, you get 8 channels of acoustic echo cancellation. The one difference is that the NV32H has a single VoIP instance, where the Core Nano and the Core 8 Flex have 2 VoIP channels. And then the other difference is that this doesn't come with the Dante channels because in most cases it's actually going to be used as an encoder or decoder. So those are licensed. So whatever size Dante count you need, you just buy that license for this one if you need it.
Presumably you're not trying to send Dante audio to a video encoder or vice versa.
Right,
So that does make sense.
There may be lots of spaces where this single box is used with a standalone microphone and a small room where you're doing everything in an NV32H. That's what it's really good for in core mode.
Core mode, to me, my first thought really is, especially in a small, maybe even medium room, seems like an all-in-one collaboration box because it can kind of do every function you may want to need. So we did talk about video.
It'll still work as a control processor as well. So
that's where I wanted to go.
Control elements. Yeah.
So let's talk a bit about Qsys as a control platform. Is that a new feature? Is that, how did it come to be, or how long has it been around? Both. It's been around since we introduced Qsys to the market. We've just spent a lot more time in the last several years really making this a more robust control engine. We've added plugins. Our Qsys plugin library has grown tremendously. The great thing about Qsys plugins is you literally drag it into your design file, and we've already built in most of the hooks to control third-party devices. So if you need to control a particular microphone or a particular video device, we've already got all the controls, and you can grab those controls and put them on your touch panel, and all you have to know is the name of that device and the IP address, and away you go. You're controlling it. Wow. And is it a pretty robust library of plugins at this time?
There is. It's a growing list. We develop a lot of them in-house. We also have partners that are developing programs, developing plugins themselves, and letting us put those into the Qsys platform. And the cool thing is as these get introduced and developed, you can actually refresh the libraries without having to actually put a new version of Qsys software on a box or even on your computer.
That is very cool. And what if somebody had a device, let's just say a display, they wanted to control, but perhaps QSC did not have a plugin and that manufacturer had yet to make one. Can programmers still go about controlling it from Qsys?
Sure, absolutely. Yeah, I mean, it's pretty simple, especially if you need, simple commands like power on, off, changing the inputs. There's a couple ways to do it. In most cases, you can just use actually, simple controls that you're sending through IP and you're just sending command strings basically to turn them on, turn them off, those kinds of things. But if you need a more sophisticated solution, you can also do Lua programming, which is a very common language that a lot of programmers use. And then if you need maybe another way to attack that, you can actually use Block Controller, which is a feature inside of Qsys that allows you to kind of build blocks that put together your controls. So it's a more graphic way of putting together the controls that you need, which will
Gotcha. So,
in turn generate the Lua code so you can see what that Lua code looks like on the back end. So it's a learning tool as well.
so if I'm not a Lua Pro or a Lua Whiz, but maybe a journeyman or novice, I might be able to fudge my way through programming a device if I didn't
That's
want to use a
correct.
command button. That is
Mhm.
pretty dang cool. That's pretty
Yes.
dang cool. So we've talked, application-wise, Qsys started large-scale venue, gone down to, the conferencing room, which I would call a much smaller. And I'm sure there's plenty in between. What do you kind of see as being Qsys's strongest applications, at this point in time? And then if you're able to, where do you see it going?
Well, we've been very strong, obviously, in the large venue market, as we've talked about. We've been very strong in the conference rooms. We're seeing a lot of activity in higher education. We've had a lot of good wins. We just released a case study for Bentley University up in the Boston area. Certainly recommend take a look at that. There's some really neat stuff they were doing with not only Qsys, but also with our Qsys Reflect Enterprise Manager, which is our cloud-based remote monitoring and management system. So they're controlling all of the classrooms with Qsys. They're using that, and they're also using Enterprise Manager to monitor and manage all of these systems, so that they know if anything is going to go wrong, or if they need to make a change remotely, they can actually get in and make that change. But yeah, we're seeing a lot of activity in those markets. As people are looking towards returning to work, we're seeing a lot of changes in the way meeting spaces are actually being configured, and a lot more thought going into how do we make the meeting space more like what we're doing here, where people are seeing a headshot of each other, even if you're in a conference room inside a space. So trying to get that experience to be a little bit better than it used to be, not the same vision of a conference room that we've been used to over the years.
So more porches is what you're telling me. I'm just kidding. So you mentioned Qsys Enterprise Manager. Can we talk a bit more about that? Because you mentioned Bentley is using it, or Bentley University is using it.
Right.
So what is this thing?
So it is a cloud-based subscription service. It allows you to remotely monitor and manage your system. So you can look from a single pane of glass at a system of systems and know that everything is either working properly, as you hope, or if there is a fault or a warning condition, you can get notifications and it'll tell you what it is, where it is. And if you do need to, roll a truck or have boots on the ground to go fix a problem, before you go to fix it, you actually have an indication of what the problem might be, where to look for it. And then the latest feature that we've introduced is the ability to actually remotely get into a Qsys system through Reflect that allows you to take control of a UCI, the user control interface, remotely. So let's say we have a conference room or perhaps a classroom, and a professor walks into that classroom and they see this touch panel and they just don't know what button to push to get things started. They can either hit a help button, on the thing and get some live help, or pick up the phone and actually call somebody. And I said, pick up the phone. Actually, you're going to pick up an iPhone, I guess. I'm an old guy doing the dialing thing. But they can actually get help, and somebody can remote in and push the button for them through the cloud. Or if they needed to actually make a change to a system because they had to find something to fix something, let's say somebody had a connection that wasn't quite right in the program, they could make that change, upload a new file within a matter of a minute or two, and away you go. You're fixed, you're ready to go.
So very feasibly, apart from the initial physical install and physical upload of that first file, just about everything else could be done remotely in terms of maintenance, management, firmware upgrades?
Firmware upgrades are on the feature set coming soon. So
okay,
we will have that ability very soon. It's not quite there yet, but we will introduce that soon from Qsys Reflect Enterprise Manager.
That is extremely powerful for
It is.
Quite a few different folks. That's wow. So how do you go about, let's say I'm a college. I've just purchased, a number of cores. I got a lot of peripherals. How do I go about adding Enterprise Manager to my system?
So it's really easy. If you have an integrator that you're working with, that integrator can help provision that for you. So we have managed service providers that we've set up. So our integrator partners can become a managed service provider and actually resell Qsys, so you can work with them. If you just have a small number of rooms, if you have a couple of systems that you want to put on, you can actually go to the Qsys website, and we have a portal that allows you to do that. For larger deployments, we certainly recommend that you go through an integrator partner who can help you get those rolled out for you. But it's a very simple process. Again, I've said this a number of times, but it literally only takes a few minutes to get your Qsys core on the cloud and controlled and monitored using Reflect. So it's a very simple process. As long as you have internet access provisioned from that network, you can get your core registered in just a matter of a couple minutes.
And it's really just the core that needs to be on the internet. You don't necessarily need to connect every single. Okay, good.
Absolutely. So all the peripheral devices, including Qsys peripherals, we talked about cameras that we have, our NV32s, but also third-party devices. So if we have microphones or displays, things like that, that are also connected to the network and that we're controlling in Qsys, we collect all that data from those third-party devices, and the core is the only device that actually connects to the cloud. And we push that information up to the cloud from the core. So we collect it, and one connection goes to the cloud, not 10 or 20 or whatever number.
That is very, very cool.
Yes.
And from a logistics standpoint, one cable connection sounds a whole lot easier than 30
it's
or
a single port. It's also easier for an IT team to manage that single connection going to the cloud.
Yes, that is true. That's fair. So, Mike, last thing I want to ask you. So, I've heard about Qsys. Think the idea is cool. I want to deploy it. Where do I go about learning to use it? How can I get training for this?
Great question. We have amazing resources. We've got a great training team at QSC. Not only is it very informative and gives you all the information, it's actually, I think, pretty entertaining. The team that does the training videos that we have on our website, they're fantastic. They're fantastic teachers. They hold your attention. So you can go to our website, go to qsc.com and go to the training section. We have Qsys Level 1 is an online course. It does offer CTS credits as well. And we also have a Control 101. So if you want to get into our control engine and learn how to program control systems in Qsys, the Control 101 is also an online course. And then if you want to get further training, we offer a lot of advanced courses that we can do in person. So on our team here in the East, we have two guys who can come in and do training at your facility, or we could bring it in the field and do level 2 training, the Control 201 class, which is a much deeper dive into the control platform if you want to get into it on a deeper basis.
Very cool. And then do you have regular webinars or even a course for teaching people how to specify Qsys if they wanted to help someone else?
We do. Absolutely. So for those designers, we have a Qsys Architect course that's available that essentially gives you an overview of the Qsys platform and what parts and pieces are right, what products fit certain types of spaces. So on our website, you can also access a ton of webinars that we've done over the last several months. We talk about some of the plugins that we have. We also talk about specific control things that you can do, CSS, styling, deeper control topics that we go into. We also have a couple of webinars where we talk about Qsys Reflect Enterprise Manager. There's a webinar about higher education and how we fit into that. So whatever your area of interest is, you should be able to find one or more webinars that kind of are the right ones for you to watch. And I certainly encourage you to go and look for those on the website. We'll put the links in for that down here below.
All right, very cool, and definitely, I want to comment myself that you are correct. Our videos, by and large, are the most entertaining yet informative videos in the industry, and that's just me plugging you guys because I like to.
They're the best.
I do have a final question, Mike, before we wrap up for today. Are you using any Qsys hardware right now on this call?
As a matter of fact, I am. I'm using a full QSYS system here. So I actually have a Shure microphone that's coming in Dante into a Core 110. I've got a touch panel here. I've got QSYS loudspeakers, QSYS amplifier, using the whole solution as we go here.
Well, there you go. That's I think a fantastic proof of concept and demonstration all in one. So, Mike, that wraps it up for today. Unless you had any last comments or things you wanted to talk about, thank you very much for your time.
Well, thank you very much. This has been great. Appreciate you having me today. Enjoyed talking with you.
I'm going to hand it back to Tony now, who's going to close us out.
Thank you, Kyle and Mike, for an amazing conversation today about the Qsys ecosystem. If you want to learn more about it, you can head to qsc.com and just peruse their website. There is tons of information available and lots of training, as we have talked about today. If you want to learn more about us, the Peter E. Schmidt Company, you can head to peschmidt.com, or you can find us on Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, and YouTube. You're probably on our YouTube right now watching this video, so welcome. If you could, click the subscribe button, the notification bell, and the like button. We would really appreciate it. And so to wrap this up, just like I do on the S-TEC TV videos, thanks for watching. Hope you learned something. Bye.